to eat, you're in the right place. This is the Eatfluencer Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Maggie Landes. Together, we are going to unpack everything about eating and discover the what, when, and how that will let you lead your best life. This is not your doctor's conversation about nutrition. Today is when you can start to love eating again. Let food be food and you be you. Get ready to get eatfluenced. Hi there, and welcome back to the Eatfluencer Podcast. My name is Maggie Landes, and I'm your host here. If you are new listening, I appreciate you tuning in. If you're a repeat listener, welcome back, and I'm glad you've come back to learn a little bit more from me. If you're new, I wanted to introduce myself real quick. I am a physician turned nutritionist turned health coach, and I help women who are burnt out of the chronic yo-yo dieting cycle fix some of their food overwhelm and confusion, learn to practice intuitive eating, and do the mindset work that's required so they can live more contently in their relationship with food and body. And I love doing it. That is what I think about and talk about all of the time, and that's what we're going to learn about here on the podcast. You're listening right now to episode 14, Realistic Eating for Your Real Life. So it is the first week of January now, and as you well know, the talk about, quote, wellness, and I'm putting that in quote, and health and eating and lifestyle and all those sort of personal change taglines, all that is very loud right now. And unfortunately, diet culture has sort of stolen some of those words, which used to have legitimate meaning, and kind of disguised their diet culture promotion and their products behind them. So that's why I say, quote, wellness, because you can no longer rely on terms like wellness, health, lifestyle as being, free from diet culture. At this point, they basically are synonyms for diet culture. But it's the time of year when the messaging is loud and clear. And there's just something about this end of the year, beginning of the year. We become very discontent with how we are. We're very critical about our behaviors and our bodies and our mood and all the things in our life that we suddenly devalue and decide we need to change on January 1st. And we look to, what's available to adopt new lifestyle tactics and new habits and all those things on January 1st that are going to make us seem optimistic and motivated and energized and do all the things. And diet culture is very seductive at this time of year, and it is really hard to avoid that background noise and make any clear decisions. But it doesn't really work that way. You can't denigrate yourself into a place of positivity. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how we need to start making decisions about our eating that are realistic for our real life. Because that's where you live day to day and hour by hour. Whatever thoughts and feelings you harbor about yourself, about your lot in life, about your body, about anything, you will be carrying those with you no matter how you choose to eat. That's the bottom line, is that you own those thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and they're going to be part of you no matter how you eat, unless you make the decision to change those. You can choose to diet or participate in diet culture. You may even lose weight in the short term. Lots of diets are very good at short-term weight loss, but none of them have long-term success. None of them. And you also will still have all those crummy thoughts and deprecating beliefs in just a smaller body. Now, some of you at this point are probably saying, Who cares? I don't even care. I don't even care if my attitude is terrible. I just want to be smaller. Well, here's what I want to say to you. I have two things to say. Number one is that I'm sorry that you're so unhappy and you see so little value in what you can contribute to the world, that your dress size is the most important and most interesting thing about you. I think that's sad, frankly, that that's the state of mind you're in. But I can honestly see where you've gotten there, living in diet culture and falling into their set of beliefs. Number two, what I have to say to that is your weight loss will not be sustained if you go on a diet now as a means to lose weight. That is proven in the evidence, 95% certainty you will not sustain your weight loss. You will regain your weight, probably more than where you even started, and you will still be carrying those terrible feelings around with you. So then you have to deal with the inadequacy, the feelings of disappointment and isolation and resentment and all those things, the baggage that we have looked to January 1st to change with our new plan. But you're going to have all that at the end of a failed restrictive diet plan that's probably been miserable, while you're gaining weight back past where you started from and even more. Now, if that doesn't sound like a setup for just complete misery, I mean, it doesn't work to try to beat yourself up into a place of being better. It just doesn't work that way. It's a very unrealistic expectation to think that our body size and shape and appearance is going to make our soul happy. Your body was not designed to do that. And if you don't believe me and want to take my word for it, you don't have to look very far around, and you can find easily in your life, probably right this minute, you can think of people or identify people that are completely miserable and very skinny. So that just, basically is the proof of point that if our size of our body was proportional to our happiness and our contentment and our value, all the thin people should be happy, productive, proud, confident people, and all the people in larger or fat bodies should be unhappy. Well, that's obviously not how it works. And you know that in the people in your life. So we need to stop telling ourselves that shrinking your body at any expense is going to be the answer to our life's fulfillment. It's not. And I'm sorry I'm getting off on a tangent. I digress here, but it is very sad to me that particularly women feel trapped in buying into this mindset, because you have the power to change that. The bottom line, the diet culture messaging that you're hearing so much of right now, I mean, it's there all the time, but you don't have to even listen to it, and it's there, loud and clear in January, and they're selling you the idea at a very high price, I might add, that shrinking your body will fix your life and solve your problems. But we know that's not true. We've just established that's not true. You know that's not true. So why would you want to give away all that money and your resources of time and energy and mental anguish to prove a point that you already know is not true? Diets don't work. Even people selling the diets know that they don't work. That's why they use the other words. That's why I was saying at the beginning why they've stolen the words, basically wellness, health, lifestyle, all those things, because they know that if they actually use the word diet in their marketing, you won't fall for it, because you've been trained finally to learn that diets don't work. And, usually the first tagline in their ads is, "This is not a diet," because they think that's how they'll get you to believe them. And that's just hard. It's just really hard to avoid that kind of, I don't know, I don't know the right word. It's this real snaky, sneaky kind of backdoor kind of marketing. I do not like it. I do not, they know it doesn't work, and I don't like the way that they take advantage of women buying into their self-esteem with a diet product. I did some real hardcore unfollowing on social media this weekend. I try to follow accounts that promote anti-diet culture and mindset transformation and health at any size and all the things. But I do still have some general health practitioners, nutritionists, clinical dietitians that I follow. And as long as they're not promoting diet products, I'm able to, I know enough about this terrain that I can sort of navigate some of their commentary and not take it out of context. But I'll tell you what, this New Year's, I don't know if it's just that I'm more active in these communities, or I'm paying more attention, or I've gotten farther along in my own journey, but there are people that I thought I could follow and no more. They have just snuck up, and the last couple of weeks, boom, diet mentality, diet promotion, calorie counting, good and bad food groups, all this sort of stuff. And I cannot keep my own thoughts in the proper weight neutral, undieted mindset by looking at all that stuff. So, and you can't either. It's just, you end up becoming a product of what you consume in the media. So the best thing is to just unfollow. And I did plenty of that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if they're going to be overtly diet speaking, then bye-bye. That's it. Garbage in, garbage out. I don't even want to connect with that. So I, for one, have just not allowed someone else to assign me my value in the world, and specifically will not assign me a value based on the appearance of my body or the size of my body. And I would encourage you to really put your foot down and unfollow some of those things too, because they're not helping you in your headspace. They're not helping you transform when you see these completely unrealistic diety messages and the pictures and the pictures and the pictures, and it's just you can't escape what that does to your thinking. So anyway, they're completely slick about it. I mean, the diet industry, they're slick. They don't grow a $72 billion a year industry by not knowing a little bit about how you make decisions. Unfortunately for you, is they don't believe that you can make your own decision. And the whole concept of diet culture in the diet industry is that they can sell you at a price a product, plan, gimmick, supplement, whatever, you fill in the blank, that will remove any shred of autonomy you have left. And they are going to tell you they know better than you. They know better than your body. They know they can make the decision for you better than you can make a decision for yourself. And that's very unfortunate. We get stuck falling for that, but that's their business model. There's no other business that would sell you a product where they don't even use the word of the product, because they know that will drive you away. So like, I'm talking about diets. They're selling you a diet, but they won't use the word diet because they know that'll drive you away. They are well aware of the 95% plus failure rate of the product, but they sell it to you anyway, and can manhandle the whole transaction so that when it fails, they can blame it on the customer and continue to get repeat customers, because they sell to the same customers that they've blamed the failure on a new chance the next time around in different packaging. I mean, that is completely nuts. Let me just go through that again. A business model that depends on a product that will fail, that the own company cannot name, that they are successful at blaming the failure on the customers and continue to get repeat customers. And they run a $72 billion a year industry. I mean, that's really sickening. Like, can you imagine if that's what, I'm just trying to think of an example. Like, let's just say some fancy blender or something, all right? And they have to sell it to me without using the word blender. It's like that game of, what's that game? The Taboo, where you're not supposed to say the word of the other word. So they have to try to sell you a blender without using the word blender because they know that you won't buy it if it's a blender. There's a 95% chance that within 6 months, this blender is going to just fall completely apart. And that when I call the customer service, they'll tell me that there's nothing wrong with their blender. I must have used it wrong or blended the wrong things. But they would like me to tell all my friends about it so they could all buy one, and that in 6 more months, they're going to be offering it in the color blue. And I should probably buy that one because that's very different than the red one that I already bought. I mean, that's just, I don't have a word for that. That's so ridiculous, but that's what they're doing. So let's get back to this conversation about realistic eating. We need to find a realistic way of eating that fits into our real life, that lets us feel more ourselves. We want to feel valued, capable. We want to be in a body that we appreciate, that we feel good in. We want to be healthy. We want to not have chronic medical problems. We want to be mentally and emotionally well. That's what we're all looking for, right? Can we agree on that? We're all looking for that. So we have to make a choice. How are we going to do that? It's not going to fall into our lap. It's not going to happen without some intentional action. We can't just be totally, cavalier and complete disregard of thinking. We have to pick something. So we have to make a decision. And there's so much confusion out there, so much information. There's a lot at stake. There's just, it's almost information overload, and this whole concept of analysis paralysis when we're trying to decide how to eat. How do we want to eat? Because I've talked about this before on the podcast, but are we supposed to eat more animal products, less animal products? Are we supposed to be carnivores? Are we supposed to be vegans? Are we supposed to eat 6 times a day? Are we supposed to eat once every other day? Are we supposed to, it's just anybody who's even trying to listen to some of the evidence is probably getting very confused. And that's how I felt for a really long time. Fortunately, I have the background. This is my profession. I can access the medical literature. I have resources and academic, ways to get into the source of the information and kind of decode it. But this is hard. So, I have a little methodology of how to make realistic, good, and safe decisions. Because that's what we want to do for ourselves in terms of eating and in terms of everything else, honestly. We want to feel good in our decision. We want to know it's safe. We want to know it's effective, and we want to know it's realistic. And, I kind of came up with this when I was, practicing in a teaching environment in academic medicine, and I was teaching students and residents basically how to be doctors. And especially the students would say so often, how do you just know everything? How can you keep up with all this information? How do you, talk about these diseases and these treatments and these patients and not get confused and have to constantly be, looking everything up? Well, here's the secret. You don't know everything. And I tell them that. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. You will not know everything. There is no possible person working in any profession that knows everything. But here's the trick. Here's the meat of the decision making. You must know the most likely outcome and the worst possible outcome. particularly in a decision-making thing where there's a lot at stake. And in practice of medicine, of course, this is human life we're talking about. So, before you make a decision, you need to think through those two things. And if you can answer those two questions, you can make a decision. Everything else will work out. And I'm going to go through in a minute a couple of examples in life and in nutrition, how that works, that thinking. But the main problem we have is we're making our decisions about how to eat and what, sort of food plan to follow based on the best possible outcome. All right. And that's not how this works. You need to know the most likely outcome and the worst possible outcome. But we're planning off the best possible outcome. We are starting these diets, and the thoughts going through our head is that if I follow all these rules, I will get to my, quote, ideal body weight. I will lose 50 pounds and keep it off forever. There will be some endpoint when I can stop the diet, and then my health and weight loss will be, I guess, magically, maintained after I stop the dieting. All these kind of I use the word magical because that's really what it is, almost magical thinking that we are going to be the outliers, that yes, I know diets don't work, but I am an exception to that rule, is what we're all thinking. We all are thinking we're the exception to the rule, but that's not how it works. That's not the expectation. That's not statistically the result. That's not anecdotally the result. That's just not likely. Now, if you happen to be the recipient of the best possible outcome in any situation, you're not going to complain about it. Nobody's ever going to complain about this. All right. But we can't base our decisions on that just, thread of a minuscule possibility that we are the outlier to the outlier to the outlier. All right. That's like, buying Powerball tickets as a source of income instead of getting a job. Like, you might buy a Powerball ticket and win $400 million, and then you wouldn't need a job. But the chance of that happening is just so absolutely small. Nobody's going to encourage you. You don't need to get a job, just buy lottery tickets. Okay, so and the way I got this is from practicing medicine, obviously. Like I said, this whole philosophy of worst possible outcome, most likely outcome. When I am talking about patient care, essentially what I tell these students and residents, you need to know what is the most likely thing this patient has, based on the history and physical and stuff, and what's the worst possible thing that you cannot afford to miss. All right? Well, that's how you learn medicine. You treat based on the most likely thing, and you keep in mind the worst possible thing because you cannot miss it. So you have to be able to analyze looking for that. You have to think about, warning signs and additional evaluation to protect yourself from missing the worst possible thing. But we don't practice medicine assuming that the patient with cancer might go away without any treatment. I guess there's probably a case report of that happening somewhere, but we don't just quit giving treatment to all the cancer patients in case they're the one outlier to the outlier. All right. So maybe you're not a clinical, medical type person, and that doesn't really, taking care of patients is not your shtick. But how about money? Everybody understands money, right? So how would you be doing your investments? How do you put your money in the stock market? Well, what's the most likely outcome, and that's how you pick your investments. You know that over X amount of time, these investments usually have this much growth and all that sort of stuff. And the worst possible outcome is putting money into something extremely risky and potentially losing all of it. That's the worst possible outcome. And that kind of limits you to the amount that you're willing to put, because you've got that very worst possible outcome in your head. But you don't, put your entire life savings in a startup company and assume that it's going to balloon into some astronomical wealth in 6 months. Okay, if that happens, and that happens to you, that would be great. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with having a good outcome. But it is so extremely unlikely you would never do it. You would never bank on that. All right. So that's where I'm getting in the diet culture. All right. Because every time I say diets don't work, somebody's got some story about somebody's neighbors, kids, friends, roommate from college, daughters, whoever, sister-in-law, that, oh no, it worked for them. And I'm not saying there are not a few diet culture success stories scattered around the place. But the most likely outcome is that it will fail. I mean, that is just in the evidence. 95% of diets, weight loss diets, fail. When you quit dieting, you regain the weight plus more in a lot of cases. The 5% that don't regain all that initial weight loss, at least probably half of those have a pattern of disordered eating, some of which is actually a diagnosable eating disorder. And that's really the worst possible outcome, is that you would continue to diet, adopt a pattern of restrictive eating that, with or without weight loss, becomes a full-blown eating disorder that could be life-threatening. So that's kind of scary. I mean, there's not really a good outcome there. So let's work through this in the non-diet or undieted model. All right. It's not a free-for-all. That's the first thing I want to say, is that when you stop dieting, it's not just a free-for-all. It's not like you're not thinking or you're not making decisions. I mean, obviously everything we do is a decision. But we'll go through that in another time. That's a whole, that's why I do coaching programs and courses and things like that, because that's something you have to learn to do. But the most likely outcome, if you stop dieting and take on the non-diet approach to nutrition and eating, is a better understanding of your body, better communication with your hunger and satiety signaling, improved body image and self-confidence, improved mental health. You will have better physical health metrics in terms of real health, more time, more emotional freedom, a more productive relationship with food that can allow you all that time and emotional, investment to pursue other ambitions besides dieting. Now, if you don't believe all that, even though that's proven actually to be the most likely outcomes, what's the worst possible thing that could happen if you stop dieting? Nothing. And I mean literally nothing. Like, nothing improves, nothing gets worse, nothing harms you, nothing goes away. It's just like a nothing. So that's pretty good if that's the worst possible outcome. So we need to make a decision. Every time you make a choice to eat, or think about eating, as a matter of fact, you're making a decision. And in the, realism model that I just showed you, do you want to make your decisions influenced by diet culture, where the most likely outcome is failure and weight regain, and the worst possible outcome is developing a life-threatening eating disorder? Those are the two, forks in the road. Or you can adopt a non-diet way of thinking, and your most likely outcome is improvements in your mental health, physical health, energy, relationships, mood, lability, longevity. And the worst possible thing is that nothing happens. And I'm lumping this into two big piles, diet culture and not diet culture. Obviously, there's lots of nuances within each of those sort of piles of information, but they really do sit on either side of a fence. I see it as a very binary choice. And I want you to just start thinking about this. I've decided personally, I'm not going to participate in diet culture. And I now devote all my professional efforts into teaching women how to navigate that non-diet landscape on the other side of the fence. You have complete autonomy in your decisions, and I'm not judging the diet that you started going on now, 6 days ago. I started a new diet every January for probably 25 years. So I'm basically one of you. I've just now found a better way to do this and live more healthfully and live better, a higher quality of life, and a more evidence-based way too. And there's lots of data. I'm happy to show that. It's, I'm not hiding something. This is just, I want to continue to share this journey and make it accessible to you so you realize there's another way of thinking. So if you're interested in, doing a little more work in this area, a little more investigation about what the undieted approach to eating means, I do have group coaching programs. At the moment, I am on a wait list for my group that will be starting in March, but I do have a self-paced online course. My signature Get Influence course is available anytime on my website, and I have a monthly membership community that you may jump in at any time, where we, review and learn about how there's another way to eat, basically. And one more announcement I just want to make. I would like to do a listener Q&A podcast in the next maybe month or so, maybe 2 months, but I need the questions from you because you're the listeners. Sometimes it is very hard for me to think back as to what I wish I would have known and ask myself those questions. But I will put a link to my email in the show notes. It's hello@maggielandesmd.com. And besides any email that you'd like to send and ask questions and, connect with me, I would really love if you have specific questions about any of the things we've covered for the non-diet approach, body image, mindset change, all this sort of thing, ditching diet culture. We want to talk about these in a Q&A format in a future podcast. Everything will be anonymous on the air, so no worries about me using your name or anything like that. But please give me some ideas. I'd love it. Thank you for joining me today. As always, thank you for listening. If you're able to drop a rating or a review on your podcast platform or on the iTunes, I appreciate it. It helps me spread this message, and you can let me know how we can work together to effectively do that and change women's lives through better thinking about food. All right, thank you again. Until next time. Thank you so much for being here today. If you love what you've learned, follow me on social media at Maggie Landes MD, and you'll never miss a thing. You can also check out my website at maggielandesmd.com and sign up to be part of our community of eaters. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll talk again soon.